Hello folks, hope you're having a wonderful week. We are diving into some hobby nightmares. It is a busy week for your pal North this week, and I mean busy. There is lots going on. I am pulled around here, there and everywhere, attending meetings, doing classes, talking down panicking students from, just giving up or not doing their degrees entirely, and obviously marking dissertations, doing second opinions on those dissertations, marking exam papers, marking admission papers. Oh, it's a busy old time. So, you will have to forgive me, as we are quite pertinent with time here. I'm going to dive straight into the Hobby Nightmares. No ad reads till the end of the week, because I need to keep the time of these videos nice and trim until the things calm down, maybe in the middle to the end of next week. So, anyway, let's jump in, shall we, with Kiwi Dan, who says, why gaming music choice is important, the Hobby Nightmare. Greetings again, Mr. North. It is I, Kiwi Dan, here again to spill the tea from a story set in the early noughties. Happy as a clam to use my name as per usual, but the names of the other people will again be changed for their privacy. Just a short one today, but before I get ready for work. Writing this is prompted, or was prompted, by a song popping up on my Spotify list. Just a quick one this time. That's what she said, giggity. Cue wibbly wobbly music and scream wobble as we go back in time to my friend Lamb Chops and his brother's home for our almost weekly games on a Saturday night. I hadn't really been bitten hard by the social butterfly bug, so playing Warhammer instead of chasing tail and smashing down pints was a good use of my time socialising in the night time. We played many different games on Saturday nights, Warhammer, 40k, and Epic, and all of them were usually accompanied by the more classic metal bands. Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Metallica. They were the usual offenders, but sometimes the brothers would shake it up a bit with a little Slayer or Pantera. Have you guys noticed how things go up like that? You like there's like a metal, if you're getting into metal music, there's like a metal iceberg, right? So you've got Metallica, who are the starter metal band, like starter actual heavy metal band, so they're there. And then below that level, you've got Pantera, and then below that level, it gets heavier as you go down. And in the skies above the iceberg, you've got really girly things like Incubus and stuff like that. Anyway, moving on. Lamb Chops was always playing against 40k. What? Playing against 40k? What are you on about? What? Lamb Chops was always playing 40k against Sticky, another friend of mine, in the other room, while I lined up my High Elves against Lamb Chops' brother, Chaseykin's Empire Army, okay? He had taken his normal army, which consisted of large amounts of peasant scum, backed up by his collection of artillery pieces, but instead of a block or two of Reiksguard cavalry or Knights Panther, he had taken a gigantic block of Reiksguard Knights on foot. I'd taken my standard fare of a mix of range, spell and melee units with a lean towards the ranged side of things. Rolling off a first turn, the dice went in my favour, letting me choose to go first or second. Seeing the horde of multicoloured peasants and gleaming foot knights, I decided to go first. I moved some units forward, then unleashed a barrage of missiles towards the Reiksguard clustered around the Empire General. As I started my shooting phase, the CD had changed and Iron Maiden was starting to blast through my friend's speakers. One specific track, Run to the Hills. To quote Pokemon, my shooting phase was super effective, and rank after rank of the proud and freshly painted Reiksguard were mowed down. I handed Chaseykins the dice to make a morale check, which when I'd finished and the music hit the chorus as the dice rolled across the tables. As Bruce Dickinson's voice belted out the chorus line of Run to the Hills, the dice came up at 10. The Reiksguard, having had enough, turned and fled, dragging their general with them. Chaseykins was muttering to himself about human leadership when he again rolled a pair of dice for how far they fled. A double 6. He reached out and went to pick up the movement tray. I covered my mouth to hide the smile, then piped up with, and I quote, hey man, they're in heavy armour, so they're still on the table. At the time, heavy armour reduced a unit's movement by 1. He thanked me for reminding him until I pointed out but you still need to check to see if the units around them panic. What followed is probably the worst series of dice rolls I've ever seen in a war game. The entire centre of his army turned and bolted towards the table edge. Swearing loudly, Chasey-Kins looked down at the table, shook his head, and stomped into his brother's room. The song ended immediately, moving on to the next track as he slammed the door shut. We ended up moving my units back to their starting position and starting again from scratch, and our second game was substantially closer. As that game was just another game in my mind, I can't remember who won. So, from that point on, the music choice was key, and every time I hear Run to the Hills pop up in my Spotify list, I can't help but smile. Thanks for reading, North. Love your work. Keep it up. I'm wishing you 40k quality subs. Thank you. Kiwi Dan. Do you guys have any sort of hobby music that comes on in the background when you're doing your hobby stuff, or when you're playing 40k or any other war game out there that just reminds you of a time in the hobby? In general, do you have any music that reminds you of a good time in the hobby or a bad time in the hobby? Let me know in the comment section down below. I think that would be pretty cool. Alrighty, let's move on, shall we? With Caveman. How's it going, Caveman? So, this is his very first hobby nightmare, and it's called The Ballad of Daryl, because we like ballads on this channel. Good morning, North. It's Caveman again. If you remember, I once mentioned that I used to play Fantasy Warhammer with my father in my early teens. I figured I would finally tell that tale. Make sure you have plenty of tea, as this is a bit of a long one. I'm currently sipping on an orange herbal tea as I type this. I also include some pictures of my dad's old Warhammer orcs and my most recent project, a Demon Prince of Khorne. I was challenged by fellow hobbyists to go all out since I hit 1 year since I picked up the hobby. Since I picked the hobby back up after 15 years. Very nice. Let's have a look then, shall we? At your models. Let's have a look-see. I'm guessing these are the orcs, right? Yeah. Boar boys. Okay, I don't care how badly they're painted, right? There is something about old school Warhammer miniatures that from way back in the day that just put a smile on my face, because you have to realise, like, to actual hobbyists or to guys who have worked in stores, the amount of memories you see in models like this makes them kind of priceless. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know these models are worth about 20 pence to me, but to somebody else they're going to be worth a lot more than that, and that means a lot. That's awesome. I don't know if you guys ever felt that way about a model. Have you ever had a model that's like really old and decrepit and bad, but like you just went, I don't care. Like I'm never letting this guy go. That's really cool, man. I like this guy. We'll keep him on the screen for now. My father introduced me to Warhammer Fantasy after he noticed that I took a huge interest in the Warhammer Mark of Chaos game, and later the expansion Warhammer Battle March. This eventually led to me playing Warhammer Age of Reckoning, a fantastic multiplayer online game that died way too soon. It's still out there, man. It still has private servers. You can actually download the game and play it. So don't run away too quickly. It is actually a thing. That video game's still going. It's not run by the developers anymore, but it's still going and it still gets updates. So have a look. My dad decided, since I was 15 going on 16, that it was the perfect time to get me into the Warhammer Fantasy hobby. Him and his friend Daryl got me a small Bretonnian and Empire force for my 16th birthday. At first I was a bit confused because my dad presented me with his hodgepodge of an army, as he had taken the time to paint them and get them ready for me to play. Now my birthday is 2 weeks before my state school year ends, so everything had aligned for my dad. He took me to the local hobby bench to help him pick out the grass and the mat and some extra terrain. We then went to some wood shop and he bought a table. While I finished my last few weeks of school, he and Daryl had got everything set up. When I got to his house to spend my summer there, he had everything ready to go. I was in absolute awe, as I've only ever seen him work on the models but never put them on the table to play. If I remember correctly, when he did, my first game I had one Bretonnian lady as a leader, and then I had the Robin Hood inspired units and some Empire Knights on horse, as well as the Bretonnian Knights on horse. My dad was playing with his orcs, and I had an absolutely great day with my dad. This is the hobby, man. Do you know what I mean? That this is it. This is what you want. This is absolutely what you want. After the first few games I played with my dad, my grandmother, who we thought had beaten her cancer, went into hospice as it had spread to her lymph nodes and it wasn't a great time. This is when Daryl got involved, because I was at my grandma's side with my sister and stepfather, as well as my youngest cousins. I was kind of grief-stricken, and while trying to keep the young ones in line with my sister. After she passed, I went into a huge depression, and Daryl suggested that he help me beat my dad as a way to cheer me up. I hope he means on the tabletop. At first, it was fun, as we started the large game. My dad bringing his full War, and Daryl backing my force up with his high elves. This game lasted 6 weekends. I will explain why. 6 weekends? That's a campaign, not a game. Daryl always wanted to argue with my dad about the realism of the battlefield and tried to argue that the catapults, cannons and bolt throwers should be doing way more than what was in the army book in terms of damage. These arguments took hours sometimes. Well, you know, you stopped the argument. Yeah, well, we're playing what's in the rules. Because those are the rules. If you don't want to play the rules, we don't have to play. Simple. Yeah? Completely took me out of the game to the point I would get on my computer and play City of Heroes or some other brain-numbing game whilst waiting for them to finish their tirades. This caused a rift between my dad and I, as my dad was doing his best to cheer me up and actually spend some time with me. Something hard for a produce truck driver, as he always had very little free time. What finally made me snap was when Daryl accused my dad of not taking care of my mental health. Wow. This is when I went from being the passive teenager and spoke out. I told Daryl that I was already seeing a grief counsellor and a psychiatrist, that my dad and mum were doing exactly what was recommended for him to try and get me to come out of my depression. Daryl coldly then said, and I quote, "I don't know why you have such a strong bond with your grandma. It's not like she raised you or gave birth to you or something," unquote. This is when something snapped and I struck him in rage. I told him my grandma has raised me since I was 6, so in a sense, she's the only maternal person who was always there for me. How dare he talk about her without knowing anything about the circumstances? Daryl rubbed his cheek, looked at my dad, and just said, "Well, he has one heck of a right hook." My dad had him leave, but after that, I stopped playing the tabletop game with my dad. Oh, dude. Dude, that sucks. That really sucks. We're not at the end of the Hobby Nightmare, by the way, so don't worry. But that really sucks, man. I can understand why you did that. It's not the right thing to do, but I can understand why you did it. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. But I can. So I didn't grow up with a father figure, really. So my grandpa was basically my father figure. So watching him deteriorate over the last couple of years has been really difficult. As you all know, I used to take care of him. Right? I used to live with my grandpa. So he's now in a home, doing very well. But yeah, I can imagine if somebody said this to me after he'd passed, I might have the same reaction. Which is why I'm not coming down on this guy like a ton of bricks. Because, nah. There are certain things. I don't know how you guys feel in the comments, but I feel there are certain things in life, even in the hobby, that deserve physical recompense. Do you know what I mean? There are certain things that somebody says to you that a right hook is absolutely the correct response. If somebody insulted my missus in front of me, like, do you know what I mean? But I mean in like a, do you know what? No, in any way, like, you know what I mean? Like in a snide way, or in a really mean way. Yeah, that I would literally, there would be no warning. It would be, okay, you're now leaving the premises. By one way or the other, you are now leaving the premises. Maybe not conscious, we'll see, you know, it depends how they react. But there are certain things where, you know, physical altercation there's the right recompense for what's going on. Dude, defend your bit, right? Defend your bit. That's my solution, right? Defend your bit. It basically means, like, literally, it's your house, it's your family, it's your people, defend them. Okay, now, if somebody insults somebody that you know, don't always lash out, but, say, listen, man, that's not cool, don't do that, right? I disagree. I absolutely disagree, right? Or if you agree with what they're saying, maybe you shouldn't be friends with that person in the first place. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm going on about here. But if somebody really goes after somebody that you love and somebody that you venerate and you absolutely, you know what I mean, like they're your world, then dude, do whatever you need to do to address that insult. Yeah, it has to happen sometimes. It's called being a man, dude. You know, a lot of people tell you to turn the other cheek. Don't do that. Because it only carries on. It only carries on if you do that. Confront it. You know, maybe warn. Maybe if you got it in you to give a warning, give a warning. Say, okay. That's the last time you say that. Okay? Without any recompense. That's the last time you say that without any recompense. Don't say it ever again. Especially not in my hearing. Okay? Good. Happens again, or they argue the toss, that's when you cross the line. That's when you say, okay, we're physical now, right? That's when you do that, yeah. But I can't blame you for lashing out because it does seem like sometimes things just hit you right in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know what I mean? It sucks. I wish this is where it ended, but as Daryl would come over to play every time I refused, he would make snide remarks like, you know, hey, get your head back on your shoulders and rub that depression out here, man. What? Or, yeah, go and retreat and go look at your naughty mags in your room or something. I'll be here when you want to stop being a kid. Dude, why is your dad having this friend over? Friend, quote unquote. You know, rub that depression out and be a man. Go and retreat to your room and look at naughty magazines or something. I'll be here when you want to stop being a big kid. Dude, why is your dad allowing this again? Your dad is the purveyor of the hobby in your space, right? Thankfully, my dad finally heard enough and stopped having matches with Daryl at the house. Over the next 10 years, I watched my dad go to his place to play, and he always had this look of frustration coming home. He would tell me, yeah, Daryl argued for 5 hours about whether my Black Orc choppers can actually get close to his spearmen because of the length of the spear. Dumb stuff like that. And he even did this with the D&D games he and my dad participated in. He would bring those games to a halt as well over realism. This led to my dad to have my sister, a couple of friends and I learn 2nd edition D&D and though we had a great time, the drama with Daryl made my dad sick of the various hobbies he used to enjoy. This continued until a few years ago when my dad got a call from Daryl's wife. He had a massive heart attack and a clot formed in his brain. This erased almost all his memories of my dad, his wife, my sister, and I. Wow. Okay. That was a twist. I had recently asked my dad if he'd passed away, and he just sighed and said he's in a care home, and that the few times he went to see him, and all he called my dad was a nice guy for seeing him, and rant about how he's being tormented by spirits wishing for his death. Okay. My dad, now having multiple melanoma, had to retire early, and I have been trying to get him back into the tabletop gaming scene. I may not play Warhammer Fantasy anymore, but I do play 40k. He recently asked me if 40k has orcs, and when I said yes, he perked up. Since we are still waiting for his SSDI, I don't know what that is, my sister and I to move into the house to help him. During the wait, he's been slowly taking more interest in the hobby, asking how my games went, sometimes popping into the office and watching me paint my Black Templars or Demons of Khorne. Currently, I have been working with the pothead painter I mentioned in my very first story to buy my models at a reduced price. He has been gathering orcs secondhand, and I plan on talking to him about doing a bulk buy order and getting my dad a starter army of orcs. After all, he and Daryl did the same thing for me when I was younger, so it's time I did the same. Don't worry, North, I have several more stories I plan on telling, especially what happened with the D&D game my dad did with my sister and I, and with some friends, okay? As well as the resolution with the little hobby bro, as you'll be taking part in the Combat Patrol event at the same store next weekend. After all, I don't want to be like Daryl. Best regards and have a happy new year, caveman. Okay, I'm going to say this Daryl dude just seems like a really old school prick, right? I know multiple of you probably know a dude like this out there, one of your dad's friends or your grandpa's friends or whatever, who's just an old prick, who just doesn't get it, right? Happens all the time. Like, I've come across these dudes in almost every walk of life, dude. Almost every single walk of life. So, I'm sure we've all come across them. And yeah, it really, really, really sucks when they just don't get it. But there's also... I tend to look at dudes in like their own time, you know. So when my granddad used to say things that were really racist, I would kind of let him off with that. I'd be like, yeah, dude, he's 80. What are you going to do, right? You know, what are you going to do? He's 80. He's not going to change his mind. That's the era he was brought up in. That's his reality. Whatever, dude, right? I think that's the historian in me, though. Like I tend to take... things on by their face value and where they come from. So you wouldn't look at a primary source from, say, ancient Greece or Rome and start attributing modern day sensibilities to what they're saying. You know, people, really weird people who want to revise history, hello lefties, would do that, right? You know, to be fair, righties do as well sometimes, but you know what I'm saying, right? They would do that. Now, as a historian, your actual job is to take what they say at face value and take what they say on their own terms. You need to role play in your head why they're saying what they're saying in their time frame and context. And not look at it through a modern lens, because that way lies danger, right? You're completely misinterpreting what they're saying. Same thing goes for old guys saying really racist and stupid stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, I know what he's saying is wrong. I know that, right? But does he know that? Probably not. Probably not. And in his context, in his time, he was probably some sort of like hippie or something, right? Who everybody thought was this like out there dude. But nowadays, things have shifted, you know? Anyway, I agree that, you know, you should have hit him. And, dude, and for a young guy to hit a grown man, you did well. So... you know, I mean, it is what it is. Anyway, let's go on to... okay. Caesar. Okay, hello. He says, hello, Mr. North. I hope you're having a wonderful day. My name is Caesar. People call me Caesar, so please don't call me Caesar. I'm just kidding. Forgive the childish joke. I've been listening to your videos for about 2 years, and I'm grateful for your contributions to the hobby. Well, thank you for listening, Caesar. Thank you very much. My story isn't exactly a hobby nightmare, but more how the hobby helped me during my most difficult time of need. English isn't my first language, so forgive me if I make any grammatical errors. I'll try my best to avoid them. Dude, you've done better than most English speakers who write into me so far, so good for you. I'm from Mexico. I'm a doctor, and I work in the ER. My passion is building and painting miniatures, which I've been doing since 2017. I started with cheap figures and paint for D&D sessions with friends, then moved on to Warhammer Infinity and any other company that has cool minis. I love seeing my minis displayed on the table. I don't really focus on building armies or meta stuff, my main focus is the painting process, though I'm also into Warhammer 40k lore and all of the nerdy things it brings. The story I want to share starts in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic. I work in a government hospital, and during that time, I was transferred to a provisional military hospital to care for patients with the virus. It was the front line of the pandemic at the time, and we treated the worst cases of the infection and other serious complications. Coming back home wasn't less stressful. I had to take off my clothes as soon as I walked through my front door, down to my boxers, and immediately take a shower before I could go near any of my family. It wasn't a nice sight, North. I watched friends, co-workers and family eventually pass away. One day, I was talking with a healthy fellow medic, and 2 days later, he was using my phone to make a video call to his family, saying goodbye before I had to sedate him and intubate him. For the record, there was a 10% chance of survival after intubation. You can imagine how stressful those days were, yeah dude. My strongest mental escape was painting miniatures. It disconnected me from the trauma, even if just for a moment. Dude, okay. This is really hard for you to read, or write, I get that. But I had this discussion the other night with my friend Steady. Most of you will know who Steady is, right? He is the friend of mine who lost his hat to that hot girl in college. And we were talking about things that the hobby can do for you, and we literally mentioned this, being able to turn your brain off. There is a thing that martial artists talk about when they say, listen, the reason why I do martial arts is because when I'm in combat with another person, I literally can only think about the combat. I can only think about this grown man trying to choke me into unconsciousness. Because if I don't, bad things will happen. Every single worry, every single thing going on in my life goes away. Because the only thing I can think of is this. It is such a good purge of my mind, and I feel so at peace when I come out of it, even when I have to confront those problems, right? There is a very good case of the mind working out problems when you just stop thinking. That's why meditation is a thing, right? People who meditate tend to be really good problem solvers, and tend to be really, really good at maintaining their own thought processes and stuff, right? And working through problems, because they allow their minds to be blank. And in the background, their brains work on the problems. It's why people say, sleep on that problem before you decide what to do, right? That's why people say that, because your brain will literally, while you're not even thinking about it or conscious, will decide what to do. It will run through the process most of the time, and you'll have a much better idea of what to do come the morning, or at least you will have an unadulterated view, a more wise view of the actions you should take, right? There is that Zen moment where you are painting a model, and you're so focused on painting that model that all of your worries, all of the things going on in your life just melt away. Because they have to. Right? They have to. These are amazing models, by the way. Look at this. They have to go away. Like, you literally have to substitute, relegate all of your issues, all of your worries. I've had lots of worries recently in terms of, stresses and work stresses and family stresses and things. Painting models has been my outlet to just forget all that. For a time. You don't forget it for a good, you forget it for a time. And when you come back from your Zen meditation state, most of the time, those issues, those stresses, those problems don't seem as large. And I firmly believe that's because you've given your brain time to come to terms with those stresses and to start to work through them, even subconsciously, without you even having anything much to do with it, right? Your brain will do it on its own. Wonderful paint jobs, by the way. I'm just going to pause so I can send a text back to my mother, because if it's not one thing, it's your mother. Alright, there we are. So those are the reasons why I think painting's so healthy for you. If you're neglecting your painting and you're working through an issue in life, go back to your models, go back to your painting. Gaming doesn't really help this, unless it is a game where you're devoting all of your mental energy to it. I find playing Warhammer Total War to be really good for this. My mind just melts away, and I'm going through the turns, I'm raiding settlements, I'm fighting battles, and when I come out of it, I feel much better for it, right? Role-playing games, by and large, are very bad for this. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. By and large, role-playing games are really, really, really bad because you are experiencing a story and your mind is allowed to wander and think about the themes and think about the characters and think about all the things that are going on, right? So whilst you're still present in the game, playing like Mass Effect or Dragon Age or Fallout New Vegas, you're more experiencing a story than you are, subjecting all of your mental will and attention to this thing that you're doing. No. You need to be working through a problem directly in front of you that you need to devote all your mental energy to, or it won't work, right? Painting is one of the best ways you can do that, especially if you're painting models that you're going to put on the tabletop. Anyway, moving on. Painting became a form of meditation for me. Survivor syndrome is real, and it hits hard. I mean really hard. As a result of my PTSD, I developed severe anxiety and depression, which required medication and psychiatric treatment. Painting became just as important as my meds and therapy sessions. I even gave some of my painted minis to patients when they recovered and left the hospital, especially the children. As I mentioned, the painting process itself is my meditation. I'm far better now. Still working in the ER, still facing stress, but it's 100 times less than in those days. I find it amazing how something as simple as building and painting figures and getting lost in the fictional lore can distract you from impending doom. I'll share some photos of my miniatures with you. Thank you, they're amazing. They're not the best, they are. Not like some of the works I've seen from your professional audience. But I hope you like them. Thank you again for your contributions to mental health within this hobby, North. We all need someone who can listen to and share our experiences with. Have a wonderful day, North, and wish you the best for you and your lovely audience. Adios. Please take a sip of your tea too. Thank you, mate. Oh, what a lovely email. Your models are fantastic, by the way. We even have the Little Mermaid here. I think she's here. Little Mermaid? Yeah, here she is. Awesome. Dude, that's such a well-painted model. That looks like it's come from like a store or something. It's incredible. Anyway, I agree. Yeah, painting is a fantastic meditation thing to get into if you're not into meditation. It is one of the single greatest things about the hobby. The most zen people I've ever known have been Warhammer Studio painters, because they get paid peanuts for what they do, but they just don't care. Because they're just zen. It's like, huh? Yeah, that doesn't matter. I don't care, it doesn't matter, right? One of the main things I'm trying to learn, and I'm still struggling with it, even now I struggle with it, is knowing what stresses to take on and deal with as a man, and which to go, nah, I'm good. I'm not worrying about that, right? It's really bloody difficult, and it is a skill that if you've mastered that, you've won life, in my opinion. There's not much that can get to you. You know, you're going to be happy throughout. And if you can chase that feeling of taking on stress that you need to take on to get things done, yeah, everything else can go suck a dick. You know? If you can get there, dude, you're winning. You're winning, right? Anyway, I love you a long time. I will speak to you in, tomorrow for some more 40k Advantage, and then on Friday for some more Hobby Nightmares, and then this Sunday we will be doing the 11th Legion. I couldn't do it last Sunday because I had too many things going on in terms of family stresses and, you know what's going on. Right, okay, so I love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more 40k Advantage, and I will speak to you very, very, very soon. All right, have a good one. Bye now.